What's up everyone, my name is Donovan, and in this video we're going to talk about how to make $1,000 per day with junk removal. Now, to start off by saying it is very possible to make $1,000 per day with junk removal. For us, it only takes us doing 2 full loads per day for us to get close to the $1,000 mark. It's like a few dollars and change that before we're at the $1,000 mark, or us doing a few smaller loads broken up. In a general well-populated area, you'll be more than able to do 3 to even 5 loads on a day, depending on your marketing, of course. So it's definitely within reason that you can make $1,000 per day. And of course, that's a gross number. That's before taxes and your employees and before your dump fees. But the margin that you have on that $1,000 is pretty good in the junk removal industry, and you'll be able to see a good chunk of that. And then, of course, if you're doing it as a side gig and doing it mainly by yourself, then of course you're going to be able to see a lot more of that money as compared to having employees and more overhead. But making $1,000 a day is very standard. For us, we try to make $500 to $1,000 per day per truck that we have, and that's pretty much the standard for most people, is $500 to $1,000 per truck that they have. And you can take a look at your competitors to see how many trucks that they have and kind of get an idea of what their gross numbers are for the year for that business. So without further ado, let's get started about how to make $1,000 per day removing junk. This is just any household junk or any kind of debris that a homeowner might have, or even a commercial property. And let me tell you, there's junk everywhere. Everybody has junk that they need to get rid of. So this is a great business to be in. There's tons of demand for it. And honestly, it's pretty recession proof as well. Everybody's gonna want to get rid of junk. And we've survived during this whole pandemic doing junk removal, so I know that that's a good business to be in long term, and even going through recessions and whatnot. So first things first, you're gonna need to get a trailer. From there, you're gonna need to figure out your pricing. Then you're gonna have to start marketing so that you can get calls and get jobs. And then lastly, you're gonna want to legitimize your business. Now, you can legitimize your business first if you have the money to do so and you are going to commit to the business. But if you want to just test it out and kind of get a feel for it, then you can just do stuff on the side for your friends, family, or neighbors, and then progress from there. Get your either DBA or an LLC, and then get the proper insurances and licensing from your state or your county. And then you can have a full legitimate business and get started that way. So that step's going to be more so up to you. That's why I have it last. But we'll start with getting a trailer, and then we'll get into that later. So first things first is getting a trailer. Now, you can get a wide variety of sizes, and the size of the trailer and the capacity that you have is going to be a big factor for your pricing. A lot of customers are gonna want to get rid of all the junk that they can in one go, and that makes it cheaper for them because it's one time that you have to come out. And then it also makes it better for you because you don't have to make multiple trips to the same job site. You can just make one quick load and get everything out of there in one shot. And as far as trailers go, you can start with a landscape style trailer or one that is caged in. It's really going to depend on what your budget is. And then if you really have the money, you can go ahead and get a dump trailer, and that'll make things go by way faster. You can carry heavier loads, and then you're going to be way more efficient than any other trailer. For us, we started with just the regular landscape style trailers, and we built wooden walls 4 foot up with plywood and 2x4s, and that's what we even now are currently using. It's worked great for us, and as far as efficiency goes, 2 guys are able to hand load and unload those pretty quickly. But of course, in the future, we are going to upgrade to dump style trailers just to make the workload easier for everybody and add a little bit of efficiency. It takes roughly 30 to 45 minutes at the dump, and if we were running a dump style trailer, we could probably cut that time damn near in half just by being able to unload it. And also you only need really one person to unload when you have a dump trailer. So that's another thing to keep in mind. As far as where to buy a trailer, there are tons of stores that you can get a trailer brand new from, but I would recommend trying to find something on either Facebook Marketplace or any kind of local market app. That way you can find a good deal on one and not really have a huge starting cost. I know most 16-foot trailers on a local market are going to be anywhere from $1,000 up to $2,000, just depending on where you're at and what the condition of it is. And that could be a pretty decent amount of money for some people. So, getting a new one could be outside of your means, and going the used route isn't really that bad of a thing. Trailers don't really take much to maintain or repair, so you're not gonna have to worry about getting a dud. Just make sure that it's got all good tires, that all of the wooden planks are good, and that the axles are good as well. And also, if you know what you're doing, also check out the bearings to make sure that they're packed properly and that there's no wiggle in them. If the bearings are bad, it'll go like this, and then eventually your wheel could potentially fall off if it's not repaired. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind. As far as size goes for trailers, I would say at the very minimum have something that's 12 foot long, and then from there I would say 16 foot is more ideal. It just really depends on what you're going to be marketing for and what your area demands. For us, we usually just get household junk, so we use the 16 footer. But if we were more prone to getting construction debris and stuff like that, then we would probably use a smaller trailer just to avoid going overweight with it. The max that we tend to load ours is 1 ton, and we try to stay 1 ton or less, and at the very most maybe 1.5, 2 tons. Those trailers really aren't designed for anything more, so that's another thing to keep in mind. And then of course it being 12 foot and also 6 foot wide, 12 by 6 or 16 by 6 or even 14 by 6 is good. And that just allows you to have more cubic yards and more capacity whenever you're picking up junk. That way you don't have to make multiple trips, and it's more of a benefit to the customer to use you and your service versus somebody with a truck bed, and the pricing is going to be all variable based on the truck bed, and you're not going to be able to get as much junk as the person that has the right equipment. So make sure you have at least a 12, 14, or 16 foot trailer. And if you want to build the walls up, that's a good idea as well to keep trash from falling out. I would definitely recommend having walls at least 2 to 4 foot high. And I honestly wouldn't recommend going any higher than that, because that's just adding more weight and more ability for people to put too much and overload your trailer. So definitely just stay within the 4 to 2 foot range. From there, you need to figure out your pricing. So pricing is pretty easy to figure out. You can do it one of 2 ways. You can go based off of your landfill pricing and then add in the estimated hours on the job and your estimated fuel cost in your local area, and kind of gather a number together based off of those 3 things. So for us, we're under, I think we're right about $65 a ton. And then I'm in a smaller area, so we're never really going to use more than $20 worth of gas. And then our estimated time is anywhere from 2 hours to load, and then about an hour for unload. So altogether, that is what our pricing is based off of. But we also go by the industry standard, which is by the cubic yard. So you can do the math to determine what your trailer's cubic yardage is. So ours is 15 cubic yards, and then the industry standard is anywhere from 25 all the way up to sometimes even $40 and more than that per cubic yard. I believe currently we are at 25 or 30. I haven't done the math in a while, but those are the common ranges. And then another way to find pricing is to just simply call up your competitors and see what they're charging, or look on their websites to see if you can find what their current rates are. The big name companies like 1-800-GOT-JUNK and Junk King, those are easier prices to find online. So I would start there, but for the most part, if you're just getting started, you're not going to be at that high of a rate. They charge premium pricing because they're bigger companies and they have more brand awareness, so they're able to charge higher rates. And then of course they're a franchise as well, so they kind of have to in order to make money. Versus if you're just getting started, you can get away with charging less. And I'm not saying completely gouge your competitors' eyes out, but you can get away with charging less than your competition to get started. And then as far as pricing goes, another tip is to not undercut too much. The industry has standards as far as pricing goes, and those are there to keep the value of other companies and the service as itself high. If you go and undercut tremendously, then people will almost be less likely to do business with you because it's going to come off as shady. They're going to think that you're going to do some bad practices as far as disposal. There's a lot of different things going on there. So whenever you charge lower, you're most of the time just hurting yourself and not really helping yourself get any more jobs doing it that way. So make sure whenever you price pretty close to what your competitors are charging and try and stay within industry standard pricing, and don't get the idea that if you are pricing low that you're going to get a lot of work, because it's the exact opposite. The more you charge, the more work you tend to get, and the more value a customer is going to perceive from your company, and that's what's going to allow you to grow long term. Next is going to be marketing. So you're going to need to do marketing in order to get jobs and get phone calls coming in. You can start with free platforms such as Facebook, Nextdoor. You can even do Yelp, Yellow Pages, and pretty much any online directory or marketplace that you can use. You're going to want to get your hands on it and post as consistently as you can. I would say at least one time per day. If you're doing Facebook groups, if you're doing Nextdoor, any of those, just post as much as you can. And then from there, of course, you can do paid advertising on sites like Craigslist. You can run Facebook ads, which is a huge thing for us. I'm potentially going to make a course on how to do Facebook ads. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to comment that below. And then you can also spend ads on Google. And you're of course going to want to have a website so that you can rank on Google for your specific junk removal keywords. And that's a huge game changer if you have a website that ranks online. That is what keeps us going year round. Granted, we don't live in a large area and we don't have a huge amount of we don't have a huge amount of jobs coming in as we would in a larger area, but we are able to get a majority of the junk removal jobs in our area because we rank online, and we honestly couldn't operate without having that. And then Facebook ads is our kind of second leg as far as marketing goes, and paying for advertisement has also been a huge bonus in jobs, and that's what really keeps us busy month to month. So from there, you're gonna want to go legit, and going legit just simply means either having the proper licensing if your state or your county requires it, having a proper business name, either a DBA or an LLC, and then having the proper insurance. Insurance is going to be a huge thing if you have commercial jobs lined up. All commercial property managers are going to request a W-9, and then also they're going to want to see a COI or certificate of insurance, and that's just to show them that if you're on their property and something happens, that they're not going to be liable for it. And that's pretty much standard policy as far as any commercial property goes. So you're going to need to have that. And then also you're going to get some customers that want to see that as well. So it's a good thing to have. And depending on who you go with, I believe Next Insurance offers insurance for junk removal at pretty much the more affordable rates. We use Next Insurance, and as far as I found, that was the best bet for us. So I'll leave a link below for Next Insurance as well. And then of course, having your business name, you're going to want to have a business name, you're not going to really want to operate under your personal name or something random. You're going to want something that a customer can see and find online or find anywhere, and then you can have business cards and you can actually brand that name and take your company farther and grow it by having brand awareness over time, and of course having something that somebody can remember. Our business name is Y'all Call I Haul, and we're located in South Texas. So it's kind of like we use the y'all because that's a Texas thing. And then of course the hauling, everybody knows that's junk removal related. So for you can do anything. If you can have junk removal in your business name or junk or something with hauling in it, that's a great start. And that'll also help you along the line whenever you have a website, because Google likes to see keywords in your website name. That way it knows what it's about. So it'll help you with SEO long term. And then it'll also be something that your customers can remember and know off the top of their heads. And then they know exactly what service you offer. If you have something random like your name or your last name or some weird random name, they're not going to know it, they're not going to remember it, and they're not going to know what you do. You want to have something that somebody instantly knows what your service is and what you're going to be able to provide them with. And then, and then also another note is DBA versus LLC. I would recommend going the LLC route as fast as you can with the insurance. An LLC is just something to protect you and your personal assets. If anything business related was to happen, and let's say somebody was to sue you, it would just shield your personal assets from the business's assets, and make it to where they can't come after your personal belongings, which is a great protective thing for you. And then having the insurance, of course, like I said earlier, you're going to need it for some clients, and then it's just a good thing to have in general. If you can have commercial general liability, workman's comp if it's required in your area, and then also having commercial auto. That way, if you have signage or your vehicle wrapped and you were to get in a wreck, that you would be covered and not have to worry about any kind of lawsuits or anything like that. So that about wraps up the video on how to make $1,000 per day. It's really just a matter of doing X amount of loads per day, which is not out of the question to get to $1,000. For us, it only takes us doing 2 full loads in a day to make $1,000. And of course, that's $1,000 gross through the business. That's not $1,000 that I will see, but the profit margins are pretty good in junk removal. So a good chunk of that I will see at the end of the day. And as long as your overhead is low, you'll get a decent amount out of it. If you guys have any questions, be sure to leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to answer them. Thank you for watching. Y'all have a good one.